when I'm at church, we're discussing the lesson. We're discussing our lesson if it's Sunday school, and if it's the actual service, you got to sit down and pay attention to the preacher who's expressing himself. The activity that gives me the most joy, that I look for during the week, that allows me to interact with people and relax as opposed to having to navigate social situations, is this game. It also scratches my old performance drama itch. It also allows you to problem solve, try and figure out how to get in and out of problems. Sometimes with the dice, and sometimes you get a bad roll, you got to even think more. You also have the tension of fighting monsters and the whole 9 yards. But there's some opinions that have been expressed online that I do think are not healthy for the community. One of these is that if people have certain criticisms over how they're changing the game, or, for example, the use of race instead of species instead of race to describe that particular player choice in the game. I don't mind. I don't care if somebody thinks that the change is good. If you want to have that discussion and it becomes reasonable, fine. If one or both of us are not happy with the conversation, move on and go back to focus on playing the game or talk about something else more fun, that kind of thing. But an opinion was expressed that those people should be kept out because they're changing the community. In that same video, the individual says that it's fine that you're entitled to your opinion, but you shouldn't give your opinion, or you shouldn't have an opinion on a community you're just joining. Depending on how they express that opinion, I think that's absolutely wrong. You're allowed to have your opinion. You should express that opinion. Saying what he said is like telling people you're allowed to protest, but you're not allowed to protest to change public policy. Now, less to deal with social issues, but specifically with game, is opinions that are linked. Both of these are sort of linked. One of them is that you shouldn't play against type, or if you play against type, GTFO. Came off as very elitist when the person said this. Here's the thing. If you build your character poorly that does not function in that class's specific role, this is specific Dungeons and Dragons, and you're not able to make it competent or good at a different role, then it's not going to be fun to play for you, and it's probably not going to be fun for the rest of the people at the table. So you might want to rethink that. If the issue is that you have an idea of taking a character class that's usually seen as one thing, and you know how to tweak it, maybe you design your own class, you talk with the GM, they test it out to see if it was good, or that it wasn't broken or unbalanced. But even just taking the rules as written and rethinking how that class can function in game is a sign of creativity, and it can be a fun challenge for a seasoned player, and maybe a new player may see trying to do something like a barbarian that, with the right skills and the right background, could even be a face of a party. That was me. I wasn't new, but I was the face of the party until we got another player who became a bard. And obviously the bard's better at that. But I still was able to use my noble background to get things done outside of the traditional muscle as a barbarian. Another one is, and it's even more strict than what I just said, was people saying that you're not creative or criticizing the creativity if you decide to make a class or a character using the mechanics of a class, but not necessarily using the lore. Dungeons and Dragons is about telling our own stories. Most of the lore stuff is suggestions anyway. And usually the monsters or the mechanics of the monsters and stuff is so you can have a challenge when you actually fight them. It's not that you 100% need to agree with Dungeons and Dragons. And your creativity can be, hey, I have this idea for a character. What class fits that character? You've done the creative work beforehand. That's still fun. So when people try and put you in a box that's not necessary, that to me is the antithesis of Dungeons and Dragons. The rules are to hopefully try and give the players enough challenge that they can overcome something and feel good about that, while having the creativity to not be confined by, say, a computer program in a video game. Yeah, I know Dungeons and Dragons came first, but you want to give the players relatively good options. Now, one thing is, DMs that may have a world that they're trying to... Any restrictions between the player or any unique restrictions based off the tabletop, that should be negotiated with the DM and the player at individual tables. I'm talking about people online making absolute or nearly or general statements of this is how it should be, as opposed to specific situations, specific games at specific tables. That's part of the fun of this game, is seeing what people come up with. So I do think our community is a welcoming community, and I know if I have to move again, I could probably, if I can find a game shop, I'm going to have friends really quickly. That, I think, is one of the best part about our community, not just the game itself.